It is the reprisal, the insult no young wrestler ever wants to hear from a locker room leader or a grumpy old vet when they come back through the curtain. And we're talking about it from every possible angle next on Till We Make It. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. If you are passionate about professional wrestling and you're never done learning all about it, then you've landed in the exact right place. What are you waiting for? Go ahead and join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe right now. And right now, I need your help to reach my goal for this year. In order to keep Till We Make It a weekly channel here on YouTube, I've set a goal of 100 patrons over on my Patreon. And you can visit my Patreon page by following the link, which is down below in the descriptus. There you will find out more about the more than 600 exclusive posts you can begin to unlock for as little as $5 a month. So if you're in a position to support the work of the Till We Make It channel, consider joining us over on Patreon. I won't hit my goal without your help. Today, I want to talk about that reprisal you may hear after putting in a whole lot of bumps and sweat out in the ring. And even thinking about it, I feel my jaw wanting to clench because this is something I bet you I've heard 100 times throughout my career, especially when I was first starting out and I was always the youngest member of any locker room. I would come back from what I thought was a pretty decent match only for some locker room leader or a grizzled old vet to be waiting right on the other side of the curtain to scream in my face, "Kid, don't you know how to work?" And here's the thing about that. When someone is so frustrated or upset by what you've just done in the ring, they're unlikely to give you a really detailed explanation of what that means. And to get to the bottom of it, I reached out to 20 of my friends and peers, colleagues and proteges from all around North America and Europe and asked them, if someone said that to you, what would you interpret it to mean? And I'm going to include my own interpretation of it as I break down the 7 different responses I got to that exact question. Before we dive in today, please take just 1 second and give me one tap of your finger and leave a like-a-palooza on this video. Thanks for doing that. So up first, if you're told that you don't know how to work, this could mean you don't know how to work a crowd. And I heard this response from a lot of people, that you were so preoccupied with remembering your spots or coming up with the next spot or otherwise lost in the mechanics that you forgot to engage the audience. You might be very good at the mechanical wrestling. That's not necessarily what this feedback means, but it means that you don't know how to work a crowd. You aren't engaging them enough for the work that you're putting in or in the way that they want to be worked. And that means you just aren't being attentive enough to the audience. A second common interpretation of you don't know how to work is that you don't understand wrestling psychology or structure. And when I heard this levied against me when I was first starting out in the black hole of independent wrestling, Pittsburgh, Eastern Ohio, and rural West Virginia, what that meant was you don't understand wrestling psychology or you don't know how to structure your match properly. It's just a big pile of moves that you happen to like, but it doesn't tell a story and it doesn't build to a climax. It might also mean that the individual pieces of your structure, that underlying architecture that allows a match to tell a complete story to the audience, are missing. Of course, they're not going to tell you how to fix that, right? That's not how these things go. They're just letting you know you better take another look at your psychology or your structure. Another interpretation that I heard most frequently from wrestlers with experience wrestling in the southern United States was this one. You don't know how to work means you don't know how to work your holds. You don't know how to get the most out of each individual hold before moving on to the next thing in the match. There's more juice in those holds if you know how to work them properly, but that reprisal indicates you don't. You don't know how to get the most out of each hold you put on. And the interpretation that I heard most often from wrestlers trained before the turn of the millennium was this. You don't know how to work means you don't know how to improvise. You don't know how to take cues from the audience live in the moment and then fold them into the match itself. You are incapable of walking and talking your way through a whole match with nothing more than listening to your opponent and listening to the crowd. If you're being told you don't know how to work, the interpretation of that I've heard most frequently from current day working pros is that what that means is your work is too stiff. You have yet to refine your work. It isn't smooth enough. It is synonymous with the old insult, kid, don't you know it's a work? Everything you're doing out there is coming in there a little bit stiff, and you better spend more time in training to smooth all of that out, because believe me, it's a work. And the interpretation of this I heard most often from my friends in Europe was this one, which I got to admit is one I've never heard before. You don't know how to work means you don't know how to tailor your matches to different audiences and demographics. You are too reliant on a set formula of yours, and you simply replicate the formula for every audience, no matter how they are different. But the truth is, if you're working in front of a crowd of would-be internet critics, that is very different than working in front of a crowd of people who are on a holiday. You've got to be able to tailor your matches specifically to the wants and needs of each audience. And if you're unable to do that, well, maybe it would be fair to say, you don't know how to work. And the response that I heard least, but I still think is worth mentioning, is this one. You don't know how to work means you don't know how to pace your match. You don't seem to understand the economy of a slow moment earns you a quick moment. You don't understand the value of contrasting tempos at the right times so that it feels well paced. If you just had kid, you don't know how to work levied against you at your booking this past weekend, I feel for you, but you should know we've all got room to grow and improve as professional wrestlers, especially this guy. And if you're one of those grizzled old vets who likes to dispense that one when somebody's coming back through the curtain, go the extra step and explain to them how they could improve. Tell them exactly what it is you mean by that remark so they have a chance of doing better the very next time that they take the ring. If you want to dive further into the structure, that underlying architecture of pro wrestling, grab my book, Toolbox, Building Better Pro Wrestling. It's on Amazon in print form or digital, or you can get an audiobook that I'll read to you myself. You can listen to it on your way to your next booking. That's over at audible.com. Also on screen is a link to my Patreon. Please help me reach my goal of 100 patrons by the end of this year. And thank you to this awesome roll call of patrons who are helping me along the way. I appreciate it.